sergeant from World War II's Band of Brothers. And he's got a new book, Saving My Enemy: How Two World War II Soldiers Fought Against Each Other and Later Forged a Friendship that Saved Their Lives. It's a fascinating story worth checking out. And it involves the aforesaid Sergeant Don Malarkey and a German soldier, two World War II veterans. Bob Welch, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, it's an honor to be on the show. Thanks.
So tell us the story of an unlikely band of brothers.
Well, Malarkey was a prominent in the HBO series Band of Brothers, and a hero. But he grew up with lots of PTSD. I remember he told me once, at the end of the day, I'd have a drink, and at the bottom of my scotch, I could see the face of every man I left in Bastogne. And so while he in the United States is just grieving the war and being racked with pain, he killed a 16-year-old soldier once and said, I remember that kid every day. The same thing is happening to a guy named Fritz Engelbert in Germany, who is feeling terrible guilt for having served Hitler. And 60 years after the Battle of the Bulge begins, they wind up together in a pub in Germany. It's actually a gathering of current-day U.S. soldiers who are stationed in Germany to kind of encourage them. And there are 6 Band of Brothers there, including Malarkey. And Bill Maloney, this sergeant in the current-day 101st Airborne, he decides to invite a couple of German soldiers, one of whom is this Fritz Engelbert. And Fritz is scared stiff. I mean, showing up to, in essence, be in the den of the enemy, and these enemy that have now become movie stars on, HBO. He doesn't want to be there, and he's ready to leave when Malarkey hoists his beer into the air and says, "Welcome, Fritz Engelbert, to the Band of Brothers." And thus begins this friendship and a time of getting to know each other, of forgiving each other, and moving forward because of it.
That's just remarkable. So what were the initial conversations like? I mean, for example, what did Fritz, just to get his perspective, he, as you say, he regretted serving the Nazis, but what did he say about all that? How did it come to be that he did that, and what were his reflections afterward?
Well, Matthias, the son of Fritz Engelbert, is the translator in this little event. When they meet after the main event, the next night they sit down after spending the day together going through the cemeteries and Jack's Woods in Bastogne, where much of the Battle of the Bulge was fought. They sit down over a couple of beers, and both of them just sort of confess their drunkenness, I guess. And Fritz says Don says to Fritz, it wasn't your fault. You had no choice, and
Right.
he didn't. I mean,
Right.
while Don Malarkey out here in Astoria, Oregon, is growing up like Huckleberry Finn, Fritz is in Hitler's youth. And Don says, you had no choice. And then later in the conversation, Don breaks down and confesses his remorse for killing so many Germans and how it's weighed on him all these years, tried to drink away the war. And Fritz says basically the same thing to him. It wasn't your fault. Your country called you. You did what you had to do. And that just releases, 6 decades of shame and guilt with these guys. And they wind up meeting 2 more times in the next few years. And in fact, their entire families meet in Belgium, and they like each other. And now the daughter of Don and the sons of Fritz are close friends. Marianne invited Matthias and Volker to Portland for a Band of Brothers reunion, and they're warmly accepted. So it's the rare war story, Dan, with a happy ending.
And from the perspective of Don Malarkey, I think it's pretty easy to understand. Not the trauma he suffered, the guilt he felt, but he was in a kill or be killed situation. With respect to Fritz, when I was reading about this, it reminded me of Hannah Arendt's famous report, "The Banality of Evil."
Right.
And it's that Fritz was part of the Hitler Youth. So evil was normalized and at a young age. So it's not just that he was conscripted and he didn't have a Dietrich Bonhoeffer moment. He didn't have that opportunity because he was essentially brainwashed from a young boy to being a young man in Hitler's army.
Exactly. In fact, it's interesting you mentioned Bonhoeffer because he's the lead quote in the book is, "The will of God to which the law gives expression is that men should defeat the enemies by loving them." Now that in our day and age, that's a difficult thing. We've got a Cold War of our own going on here in America, and regardless of our political ideology, at some point, I believe that there's got to be some sense of respect. There's got to be some sense of willingness to, in essence, like these guys, sit down over a couple of beers and at least find some sort of commonality where we can move a dialogue forward. That doesn't mean we have to agree with each other. That doesn't mean we have to necessarily even like each other. But at some point, we have to respect each other or be humble enough to begin anew. And I think that that's the legacy that these guys have left us, that, hey, you know what? These guys served 5 miles apart in the Battle of the Bulge. Their goal was to literally kill each other. And 60 years later, they're best of friends. So it can happen.
So, Mr. Welch, what will surprise readers about this book?
Well, I've written a handful of books about war, and they're about combat. They're about killing somebody, the enemy, and this is about, in essence, loving your enemy and embracing your enemy and realizing, guess what? He during the war, he sent letters home to his mom too, and during the war, Fritz prayed to his God too during the war, and suddenly you realize that as much as you try to make each other into the enemy, that you actually have things in common, and that is your humanity. So I think that's what would surprise people.
And what kind of life did Fritz Engelbert live when he came back to Germany after the war?
Interesting. He underwent an inner metamorphosis of great change. He basically became a Hitler hater in a country that was still pretty much excusing Hitler, and he went all the way over and became, in essence, a pacifist and just hated any mention of the word war. He would, on a Sunday afternoon gathering with the family, he would be the one who would break down and say, it wasn't as glorious as you're making it sound. They shot us like dogs, and so he had a kind of a quiet, brooding. He was a very successful businessman. He lost himself in his work, but he was not the touchy-feely dad, that's for sure. Whereas Malarkey, very conservative, very far to the right, and he expressed his remorse in the bottle, basically. He said as much in 2001 when Band of Brothers was released. He said, I tried to drink away the war. But what Saving My Enemy shows is that despite all that pain, despite that PTSD, we can still find each other in the end.
Yeah, watching that Band of Brothers series, which has been a while now, but you if you've watched it, what the first thing that jumps to mind, I think, is the interviews with those who actually served at the end of an episode where they talk about their experiences and they break down. I mean, it is tough stuff. Yeah. And I wonder how Fritz helped Don. You said he sort of he self-medicated with the bottle, and I wonder how Fritz helped Don. In terms of how Fritz helped Don in terms of their interactions with some of the demons that he was still wrestling with.
Yeah, I think what both men were looking for was affirmation and a sense that they, it's like that end of Saving Private Ryan. Was I a good man? Mm-hmm. Did I live a good life? And I don't think that either of them deep down felt that. And I think what the forgiveness was able to do was affirm one another and say, you did live a good life, Fritz. You raised 2 great sons, and you didn't do anything against your will. There was a moment in the book where, as a kid at Hitler Youth, he wanted to turn in some Jewish neighbors. He didn't, that his folks were actually helping give food to, and his conscience wouldn't let him do that, although he wanted to. And so Don was able to say, you made the right choices, and so don't keep throwing yourself under the bus. And Fritz basically saying the same thing to Don, but somehow coming from enemies, other people might have told them that, but coming from the enemy meant all the more. And because I think deep down, I think soldiers have respect for their enemy, even though they're trying to kill them. I think they respect them.
And as a writer, did writing about an American soldier and a German soldier challenge you in any way?
Definitely, great question. It was, I knew Don Malarkey inside and out. I'd written Easy Company Soldier in 2008. I knew his story. Everybody in America who follows World War II knew Malarkey's story, but I didn't have a clue about this guy in Germany. And I told their sons, I said, when I'm growing up, the Germans are a bunch of faceless guys who are the enemy. I never considered that you were like me, that you hurt, that you had moms and dads, that you would write letters home. And so Fritz, the two sons of Fritz, Matthias and Volker, were huge helps. I think we traded 575 emails in 6 months. They were a huge help in trying to help me understand what it was like for their father growing up in Hitler Youth, and how absolutely dedicated he was to Hitler and his vision for the world.
And I know Don Malarkey passed away a few years ago. What about Fritz?
Yeah, Fritz died in 15. Don died in 17. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is a great story to tell, and people to remember both, and this just remarkable bond between the two. It's an astounding story. Saving My Enemy is the book. How two World War soldiers fought against each other and later forged a friendship that saved their lives. Saving My Enemy. Bob Welch is the author. Bob, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with the book.
Dan, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
If your money is not earning at least 2.5% guaranteed as well as tax deferred, you need to call Professional Life and Casualty. Professional Life and Casualty is offering a 2.5% guaranteed APR on new funds deposited into your annuity, traditional IRA, or Roth IRA accounts. Rate subject to change. Please call to confirm. With Professional Life and Casualty, you pay no surrender charges, no administrative fees, and no withdrawal fees. Professional Life and Casualty has been providing peace of mind insurance and annuity products for over 60 years. Visit plcinsurance.com. plcinsurance.com. They'll send you a free guide to tax-deferred, no-fee annuities. Learn about a 2.5% guaranteed APR return on annuity, traditional IRA, or Roth IRA with no surrender charges, no